Is it right to destroy things because we don't agree with them? You may think, looking at today's newspaper headlines, that I was going to talk about the new Prime Minister, and indeed, part of me wants to do so. Partly it's a good thing, first person of Asian descent to become Prime Minister in this country, and that's got to be positive. But then it's a bad thing because, of course, nobody's actually elected this person. But actually, that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is what's on the television this evening, which is a programme called Jimmy Carr Destroys Art. And by the time you watch this, that programme will have been and done and gone. But the premise is a dead simple one. Forgive me if you've not seen it. I'm sure it'll be marvellous, he said in a slightly sarcastic way. But the premise is that you take works of art by different, quite controversial people, and the audience vote to whether or not to destroy them. Okay, so what do I feel about the moral premise of destroying things because you don't agree with the morality of the person that's created it? And I take you back, if that's okay, to 1933, to Nazi Germany, where they had the great bonfires of the books, of course, which are well documented in history, and when people actually took degenerate books and then later degenerate artworks. The Nazis famously set up an exhibition of what they called degenerate artworks in a similar way to what Jimmy Carr's doing on this television programme tonight. And there's a lot of controversy, there's a lot of talk about it in the paper and on the TV and in the radio about whether it's morally right or cancel culture taken too far. But what I want to raise to you is this. Does the creation of something that is a work of art, whether you do or do not like it, is that tied in with the moral status of the creator? So one of the people under consideration is Eric Gill, and Eric Gill is, of course, a notoriously awful person, a sexual abuser, a most appalling nature. But is that something that can exist separate to their artwork? And you may argue yes or no. You may argue rightly or wrongly. But my parallel with Nazi Germany is an important one. Many people were banned in Nazi Germany because their moral status was deemed to be unacceptable. We also had problems within Christianity of what's known in Pentecostalism as heavy shepherding, the actual concept that you shouldn't read certain books, or you shouldn't listen to certain pieces of music, or you shouldn't watch certain films because of the moral status of the creator, because they are not morally acceptable people that have done it. And that's a very similar example. And let's just unpack those three examples: the Nazi Germany one, the Channel 4 one, and the one that exists perhaps in Pentecostal Christianity as well. Let me say it again. Is it right to destroy something because you don't agree with the person that's created it? Now, of course, there's many examples that I could raise forward. The obvious one being Richard Wagner, and I've raised him before in this video series, that Richard Wagner was a notorious anti-Semite, a thoroughly unpleasant person, yet created some of the most beautiful music ever written. And as you reflect on that, and as you build on that picture in your mind, you think, well, what's more important, the beautiful music that Richard Wagner wrote, or Richard Wagner's moral status? Well, of course, Richard Wagner is long dead and long gone, whereas his music continues and it lives on. And even with its Aryan overtones, it remains beautiful music. And I remember as a child a character called Levin. Bernard Levin was a famous Jewish art critic, music critic, and he wrote a column in the paper, and he was a massive Richard Wagner fan. And he talked about this very thing that we're talking about, the 1933 burning of books. He said, the trouble with burning books, and it's a famous quote, burning books is the first step towards burning people. It's imposing your beliefs. Please reflect on what I've been talking about. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. See you again.